Continuing with issue number 7, this will be part 2, Hill Camorah, Book of Mormon Geography, Hill Camorah. Off the eastern coast of Mozambique in Africa is an island country called Comoros. Prior to the French occupation in 1841, the islands were known by its Arabic name Cumorah. There is an 1808 map of Africa that refers to the islands as Camorah, and they provide the map here. The largest city and capital of Comoros, formerly called Camorah, is Moroni. Camorah and settlement Moroni were named in pirate and treasure hunting stories involving Captain William Kidd, a pirate and treasure hunter, which many 19th century New Englanders, especially treasure hunters, were familiar with. In fact, the uniform spelling for Hill Camorah in the 1830 edition of the Book of Mormon is spelled Camorah with an A instead of a U. Okay, so now if we look at this map, first of all, the map they show is a zoomed in portion of the full map. The full map they give a link to, and it is found on the website of the University of Texas, I believe. So it is an authentic map. I have no reason to doubt it. And I've looked at the modern maps. There is an island where they pointed out named Comoros in the modern day with the capital city of Moroni. According to this 1808 map, it was there, spelt Camorah. And while this map does not give its capital city's name, it does state the name of Camorah. Now, the claims about Captain Kidd I have not been able to personally verify because I have not been able to personally find the exact copies of whatever books would have been written back then. However, it doesn't really matter to me. They admit that Camorah and Moroni are authentic Arabic names, and at least by this we know that Camorah was an ancient name. So what's the issue? As I said in my first video, Middle Eastern names, whether they're Hebrew or Arabic or Aramaic or Babylonian or what have you, Middle Eastern names would logically appear in the Book of Mormon. So they've shown, first of all, that it is a Middle Eastern name. It is an Arabic name. Logically, Arabic names would be found in the Book of Mormon. What's the issue? And this really is, it's going to be a short video because it's really just a rehash of what I already went through in the first video, that main point. They're looking at this and saying, how can I use this to prove the Book of Mormon fake? When the real question should be, all honest seekers of truth don't ask how to prove something fake. They ask, if it is true, what would we expect? If the Book of Mormon is a true history, a true record, then would it be surprising? Would it be out of place to find these names in the Book of Mormon? And the answer is no. They are true Middle Eastern names, and as far as we can tell, they date back to the time of Lehi and the time of the Book of Mormon. So, finding them in the Book of Mormon would not be an issue if the Book of Mormon is true. It is only by turning it around, and instead of seeking truth by asking if it is true, what would we find, they are saying, I want to prove it false. How can this prove it false? Now, I don't personally care if Joseph Smith read about Captain Kidd. I have my doubts that he did, given what I know of his personal history, but he might have. I'm not saying he didn't. I'm saying it doesn't matter. You know, I've read books with many names. You know, you read historical fiction, you're going to come across a lot of different names that are real names in history. You read actual historical events, and you're going to come up with a lot more. The claim would not follow logically that it has to be fake because it shares names similar to names that existed when the author lived. This is not a logical conclusion to draw. If the name is authentic for the time period and location that it is being claimed for, then there is no reason to reject it, unless you want to. And that's what this issue was really all about. Because if it is a true Middle Eastern name, and if the Book of Mormon is true, and these people came out of the Middle East, then we would expect to find Middle Eastern names. And we would expect not only to find them in the Book of Mormon, but we would expect to find them anywhere else that the Middle Eastern languages have influenced. So yes, the Arabs came down the eastern coast of Africa. A lot of places there are going to have Arabic names, or Middle Eastern names. But so are the people in the Book of Mormon, because they also came out of the Middle East. And there's really nothing else to say here. Now they do point out, there's one thing, they do point out that the spelling for the word or name Camorah in the 1830 edition of the Book of Mormon was spelt with an A instead of a U. But again, does it really matter? By the time of the second edition, I believe in 1835, might have been 1837, but by the time the second edition was printed, Joseph Smith had corrected it. Now, why was it printed? The word Camorah appears in the Book of Mormon, I think, a half a dozen times. It's not common in the Book of Mormon. It appears in like 2 chapters, and that's it. And if Joseph Smith was familiar with Captain Kidd and his adventures and all these claims, surely the printers would have been familiar with it. Now, I don't know why it was. Did Joseph Smith misspell it? Maybe. Did the printers misspell it because they recognized the name and assumed that Joseph Smith, in spelling it with a U, had given the wrong spelling? Another possibility. But it doesn't matter. Who cares? It's still an authentic Middle Eastern name, which we would expect to find both in the Book of Mormon and in the Middle East, or on Eastern Africa, where the Middle East had great influence. So, again, the issue is truly a non-issue for those who believe the Book of Mormon is true, because this is exactly what we would expect to find. And I will end that here as my part 2. Stay tuned for part 3.